Hey, good morning, y'all. Meteorologist John Hominick here with Empire Weather. Hope you guys are doing well. Having a great start to your week. Here with your latest energy, weather, update, long-range forecast here, looking at the pattern over the next several days and weeks. And I'm going to keep it a little shorter today, but start with this Greenland block that we're seeing form here on model guidance as we move into the early part of March. So this is the first week of March, heading into the middle part of next week, about a week from today. And you can clearly see this blocking developing back from Europe into the North Atlantic, moving towards Greenland, and then continuing to retrograde back into central Canada. This is on the deterministic European route. But this is an impressive blocking regime with troughing underneath it. And we also notice this ridge poking north of Alaska. These are the things that we look for in the high latitudes when we're looking at the possibility of more substantial cold, not only in Europe, but also in the United States. It's this amplification, this retrograde back, and that resulting cross-polar flow into the country. So we see this sort of continue to evolve as we get closer to March 7th and 8th. This is valid on the 8th, and that's really when the floodgates will open up and that cold will start to shift southward. If we look at the model data here, valid on March 8th and 9th, look at this high latitude blocking pattern here with one big block here over Alaska and another one from Hudson Bay southward. So the temperature profile across the country is likely to get quite cold during this time frame. Cold is going to flow down into the central, eventually the southern plains, as well as the eastern United States, all being sort of exacerbated by this blocking. And the model data is in good agreement on that now. We're likely to see heating demand trend well above normal during this time frame. I think we'll keep adding cold as we get closer and the models start to get into better agreement on the timing of this, especially in the next couple of days. So that cold flows down, and it's really likely to stick around for a while. We see it expand throughout the plains, throughout the Midwest, throughout the eastern United States. And if we go back aloft and look at what's happening, the models are suggesting that this block will actually sort of run its course over parts of southeastern Canada, south of Greenland, while blocking in Alaska retrogrades back to the west. We actually have to zoom out here to the northern hemisphere to check out what's really going on. But we really have troughing sort of settling into the northeast United States. We have ridging developing to the west of Alaska near the Aleutian Islands. And we are starting to see some signs of momentum coming out of the Pacific, but the way that sort of evolves is still to be determined. We have to see if this is going to come in straight or if we're going to get a little bit of a West Coast ridge spike during that time frame. Either way, as we move through the middle and latter part of March, it's likely that this cold is going to linger around a bit, especially across the central and the eastern United States. As we move later on into the period, though, one thing that we continue to see on model guidance is the eventual extension of this Pacific jet in the central Pacific towards the west coast of the United States. And what that's eventually going to encourage is not only the possibility of another major precipitation event in the western U.S., but eventually that milder Pacific air is going to enter the country and we're going to see our southeast ridge prop back up. Now, exactly when that happens is still to be determined. It could be the first couple days of April. It could be the second week of April. If you believe the weeklies, it's likely to be a bit later because our high latitude blocking hangs on a little longer and we see it sort of rebuild. But there's a world here where this jet comes out and extends towards the west coast, and we start to get troughs in this region and ridging in this region, and all of a sudden our active warmer pattern is back. That is going to be the next real challenge in this forecast, is pinning down when we expect to see the forecast trend warmer, and it's all going to come down to this jet extension. When does this jet extend? Watching this high latitude ridging here over Alaska retrograde back is going to be one key cog in sort of how this all evolves. We also want to obviously pay attention to Greenland, but the retrograde of this ridge back into Alaska is a huge part of this forecast, because once it gets back past the Aleutians into Eastern Asia, it should be off to the races with this Pacific jet extension. Models are in good agreement as we get into April that this is going to be a more active pattern. I want to show you guys the latest CFS, just rolling this forecast forward as we get into late March and then looking ahead to April. What we start to see is an active flow across the United States, pulling up the anomaly and looking at sort of how this evolves. This tells us that the flow is going to be more active across the country. We're seeing those troughs coming in. The European seasonal, or CFS seasonal, also in agreement that this pattern trends more active across the central United States in particular, and that we start to see a height pattern that's a little bit more conducive to that activity and the warm-up as we get into the later part of March and then early April. So again, we're watching for that jet extension in the Pacific. That's going to be the main focus for us here, is when do we see the models start to retrograde our Pacific ridging back so that the Pacific jet can really extend out. Because when that happens, the cold air will likely be shunted away and we'll get our southeast ridge and warmth back sometime in early April across the United States. But cold until then, expecting some colder trends over the next couple of days as well. Stay tuned for more, guys. Thanks for tuning in again. We'll be talking to you soon.